Namaste dosto and welcome to The Explainer. Today we are taking a visual deep dive into what is honestly one of the most high-stakes battles in modern democracy. We're talking about the relentless, ongoing tug of war between the immense power of the state and your individual freedom. To understand this, we have to crack open the ultimate rulebook, the Constitution, to see exactly how it acts as your personal shield.
Okay, let's dive into this. Can the government literally take away your life or your personal liberty? I mean, it sounds like something straight out of a dystopian novel, right? Well, the short answer is yes. But the long answer? That is where things get absolutely fascinating. Setting the exact rules for how and when the state can actually do this is the bedrock of our entire constitutional journey today.
So here is our roadmap for the explainer today. 1. The unbreakable rights. 2. Life and personal liberty. 3. The preventative detention paradox. 4. Emergency and habeas corpus. And finally, 5. The evolution of justice. Don't worry, we are going to logically break all of this down so you can see exactly how your fundamental rights actually work in the real world.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the unbreakable rights. We are starting right at the top with the absolute most powerful rights in the entire Indian Constitution. Article 20 gives you 3 crystal-clear, non-negotiable protections. First up, no ex post facto laws. This basically means the state cannot punish you for something you did in the past, using a brand new law they just invented today. You can't change the rules after the game is played. Second, no double jeopardy. You simply cannot be punished twice for the exact same crime. And third, no self-incrimination. The police cannot force you to testify against yourself. They can't beat a confession out of you or force you to take a narco test without strict permission from a court. The evidence has to do the talking. And here is the truly brilliant part about this. Articles 20 and 21 are so absolute, so fundamental, that not even the president of the country can suspend them. Literally, not even during a declared national emergency. They are the ultimate unwavering shield for every single citizen. Which naturally brings us to Section 2, life and personal liberty. We're moving from Article 20 straight into Article 21. Take a look at the exact wording of Article 21. It says, no person shall be deprived of his life or personal liberty except according to procedure established by law. Now, I really want you to focus on that phrase, personal liberty. It goes way, way beyond just not being locked up in a jail cell. It means having the right to live your life with actual human dignity. It's about making your own choices about your body, your movement, your whole life. To see how this works in reality, look at the boundaries it puts on state power. The state cannot just arbitrarily take a life. Do you remember the highly publicized Hyderabad encounter case? The public was absolutely outraged over a horrific crime, and the police completely bypassed the legal system, shooting the suspects and claiming they were trying to escape. But what happened? The courts stepped in and actually investigated the police for murder. Why? Because only the courts, following strict, cold legal evidence, have the authority to take a life. The police can't just act as judge, jury, and executioner, no matter how emotional the public gets. Now we're going to shift into the complication phase of our explainer. Section 3, the preventive detention paradox. Because, if we have all this incredible liberty, why on earth might a democratic state need to arrest you before you've even done anything wrong? It's a vital distinction, and you can see it right here. Punitive detention is what we all typically think of, right? You commit a crime, the cops gather evidence, and boom, you're arrested. But preventive detention? That is an entirely different beast. That's an arrest based purely on the suspicion that you might commit a crime in the future that could threaten national security. It is literally a paradox. The state is jailing you to prevent a crime that hasn't even happened yet. And the state's power to do this has a long, constantly morphing history. Right from the birth of the Republic in 1950, we had the Preventative Detention Act. That eventually morphed into MISA in 1971, and then into the incredibly strict TADA in 1985 during the Punjab insurgency. After the Parliament attacks in 2002, we got POTA. And today we see this massive power wielded through the UAPA, which was heavily amended in 2008 and 2019. It just keeps evolving.
But obviously, to prevent this kind of massive power from turning into absolute tyranny, there have to be checks and balances. The state can't just lock you up forever on a hunch. Article 22 acts as that crucial check. It places a hard limit of 3 months on detention unless an independent advisory board, usually high court judges, actually approves an extension. Plus, the state legally has to tell you why you are being held, and you get the right to legal representation. These are the specific boundaries keeping the state from overreaching.
All right, let's move into Section 4, Emergency and Habeas Corpus, because this is the exact moment in history where the beautiful theory of our rights collided brutally with reality. First, let's bust some legal jargon. Habeas corpus. It's a Latin term, and it literally translates to have the body. In plain English, it is your ultimate legal weapon against illegal police detention. If someone just vanishes into police custody, a lawyer or a family member can file a habeas corpus writ. This forces the police to physically bring that person into a courtroom, in front of a judge, and actually prove that the arrest is lawful. So hold on to that concept, and let's jump back to June 25, 1975. A national emergency is declared in India. Almost overnight, that preventative detention law we talked about, MISA, was weaponized. Thousands of political opponents, journalists, and everyday activists were just thrown into jail arbitrarily. And the only reason given? Merely the suspicion that they were threats to the state. Which brings us to what is widely considered the absolute darkest hour for Indian justice. Citizens obviously rushed to the courts, wielding their ultimate weapon, habeas corpus. But tragically, the Supreme Court ruled that during the emergency, even the right to habeas corpus was suspended. Think about what that means. The state could lock you away, and you had absolutely zero legal remedy. The constitutional shield had completely dropped. But thankfully, the story does not end there. In Section 5, The Evolution of Justice, we are going to look at how the judicial system actually learned from that dark past and course-corrected to protect you better today. So the crucial point is understanding the massive shift between these two concepts. Initially, India followed a very rigid British concept called procedure established by law. That basically meant if the parliament passed a law to take away your liberty, and the police checked all the boxes written in that law, the courts couldn't do a thing to stop it, even if the law itself was ridiculously unfair. But over time, the courts shifted toward the American concept, due process of law. This was a game changer. It means it's not enough to just follow the steps. The law itself has to be fundamentally fair, reasonable, and just.
To really cement this idea, let's look at the famous folktale End Heteronagri. It perfectly illustrates this. In the story, an absurd king needs to hang someone for a crime, but the actual culprit's neck is way too thin for the noose. So following his strict procedure, the king orders his guards to find a random fat man whose neck fits the noose perfectly, and they just hang him instead. It's a funny story, but it powerfully shows that simply following a procedure to the letter is a total mockery of justice if the underlying rule lacks common sense and natural fairness. Due process is literally what protects us from living in an End Heteronagri.
And you can trace this exact evolution right through the Supreme Court's history. Back in the 1950 A.K. Gopalan case, the court took a very rigid, literal interpretation. Basically, if the law is written, we follow it. But the watershed moment, that arrived in 1978 with the Maneka Gandhi passport case. The Supreme Court boldly expanded Article 21 and officially embraced the spirit of due process. They laid down the law. Any statute depriving you of liberty absolutely cannot be arbitrary or unfair. And because of that incredible shift, Article 21 is astonishingly broad today. It protects you from illegal phone tapping like we saw in the PUCL case. It paved the way for the decriminalization of homosexuality by striking down Section 377. And, crucially, it established the right to privacy in 2017. Today, your personal liberty means the police cannot just forcefully demand your phone password without immense, specific legal justification. Your digital life, your secrets, are protected under that exact same umbrella of human dignity. The Supreme Court said it best. The right to privacy is an intrinsic part of the right to life and personal liberty under Article 21. What you really need to take away from this is that your rights aren't just static words printed on an old page. They are hard-won, constantly evolving shields. The liberties you enjoy today, right down to keeping the password on your smartphone private, exist because the interpretation of the Constitution has grown and fought to protect you. Which leaves us with this final, really provocative thought. In our modern age, an age of advanced digital surveillance, predictive policing, and very real national security threats, exactly where do we draw the line? How much of our personal liberty are we actually willing to trade away to the state for the promise of security? It is a delicate balance, and it's a battle we are still fighting to perfect today. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I will see you next time.